This episode of the Long Run Podcast is sponsored by Skechers.
Hello, everybody. It is 7 o'clock on Friday. Welcome to the Long Run Show live stream and podcast, brought to you by the 40 Runs Running community and our generous sponsors, Skechers. I'm Ian Wilkinson, and tonight I am joined by Chris Ford, Sabrina Ahmed, and Toby Frost, and we are going to talk you through how to draw up your own marathon training plan. There's plenty out there online, but if you fancy doing it yourself, we're going to look at the fundamentals and the best way to go about doing that. So welcome along, everybody. We hope today is going to be very educational for you. You may notice that there's a little bit less facial hair on today if you are watching live on Facebook and YouTube. And Chris, I can only say that it's a massive relief.
Yeah, I think, well, evening, everybody. How's everybody doing? I've just put it on YouTube, but get your questions in. We're going to be talking about marathon training plans. I'll come on to that in a sec. But yeah, it is a relief. But I think more than anything else, I just want to say thank you to everybody who sponsored us. We raised over, I think it was 500 quid or something, which was amazing. We didn't expect to do that. But more importantly than anything else, we raised awareness about four important issues, and four important issues, even, you know, not just for November, that carry on for the rest of the year. It's very important to talk about men and women's mental health, suicide prevention, men and women, and obviously us boys in terms of testicular cancer and prostate cancer awareness as well. So make sure you get yourself checked. It's really important. We did it for a reason. Thanks to everybody who supported us. But we don't want to stop talking about it just because we shaved off our moustaches. We're going to carry on talking about it. You know, it's very, very, very important that we keep talking about these.
So
subjects.
you weren't tempted to keep it then? Was there not one iota of, oh, you know, perhaps I'm looking quite cool in my Tom Selleck look?
No, because I'm quite lazy. I just don't shave, and then it gets to the point where Nick tells me off, and then I'll go and like trim it up a little bit, so kind of she doesn't notice it anymore. Or Scarlett will just turn around and go, "Dad, what's that? You look like a tramp." Usual, you know. And then I'll make some small effort, and then I'll go back to default position, which is like, you know, it's like if you'd have done this podcast 3 minutes ago, there was like a mountain of washing, like literally a mountain of washing. This is drying from my run earlier, by the way. But a mountain of washing that if she'd have seen it, I'll just get straight into that. You know, I mentioned before that big hole that she's dug me in the garden. Yeah, she will put me in one day. I might as well just got straight in it and put all the clothes on top of it. So yeah, it's just those little wins really. So like Hayden, I've shaved it off because I know he was scared for his life as well. So and Hayden could be. Let us know in the comments if Hayden's in your house tonight. That would be great.
Yeah,
he could be anywhere.
Absolutely.
Who knows?
Yeah, he seems to be doing the rounds. We had a nice chat with him last week when we were doing the pub, and he was in the other room while his mates were watching the football, and he was rabbit sitting in the other part of the part of the house. So and he's I saw there was a poll knocking about that everybody thought that he pulled off the moustache better than all the rest of us. I can't argue, really.
I'll make him right. He did, as always, looked annoyingly handsome with it. But there you go. And changing topics completely and totally unrelated. Well, it's kind of related because one of the people's got a moustache. Is that I've got to give a shout out to the guys from Believe in the Run, Kafuzi, and all those guys who have been smashing it out in the running event. There's a big event that goes off in Texas, which is like one of my favorite places in the world. And they do all like the new shoe launches and stuff. And they've been, if you're on social media and following any of those guys, I can really recommend following Believe in the Run. We obviously had Thomas on and Mike Kafuzi as well. They've been putting loads of stuff out the last couple of days from all that sort of stuff over there, all the new products and that. So I've got to give those shout out to those guys, and obviously give a big shout out to Skechers, who have got some amazing products coming. We've got the new Max Road 6, which we're all just like,
Sabrina's face just lit up.
I know. She's like,
do you remember that time when she said, "I'm not wearing Skechers"?
Yeah.
Honestly, times have changed. May the 15th next year, I will be first in line. If there's a pre-order, I'm happy to put an order in now. I'll pay a premium on them. I'm like,
she's going to fly over to Texas and get some.
Yeah.
You know what? That's not. We can't get him here.
Running Warehouse. Big shout out to him. If you want to sponsor this pod, let us know.
Yeah.
How can I get in contact, Wilco?
They can get us via the 40 Runs website at 40runs.com/longrun. Fill in the box, fill in your details, and we will get the message.
Yeah, and Toby got a paste in as well this week on the guys put out a video and upset somebody this week. If you've not seen the 361 review, admin, Si and Tobe took some shoes out for testing and upset some people. But as always, we do honest reviews on the channel. We don't really care if we give honest opinion. We're not journalists, not get paid to make these reviews. But that was little to do with it. It was more the fact that people were actually hammering Speedgoat for saying more than 3 words in that video, which is quite amusing, really. So if you got hammered in the comments, I know you haven't seen them, but trust me, you got
He
hammered.
can't win. He gets hammered when he don't say anything, and he gets hammered when he does.
Yeah, there's a thing.
I say he spoke. That video is like, I don't know, 5-10 minutes long, however long it is. Obviously, we were on that run 2 hours. We did 12 miles. He spoke for the whole 12 miles. So if anyone wants to know if he actually talks,
He does.
he does.
Tobe, do you want to say anything?
Not really, no.
Not really. Although I would say, if could everybody please follow Tobe on Strava, because he's now claiming that on Strava that his weekly miles includes his walking. Now this week he went out and did a 1.5 hour walk, and he's put that on Strava to prove that he's done more miles than me, which is a blatant lie, Tobe. You've
It's a
not done
run.
more miles than me. You can't count walking. So let
Oh,
us
it's
know in the
Christmas run
comments.
around London.
Wait. Let us know in the comments, do you count walking? And there's nothing wrong with that unless your name's Toby Frost as weekly mileage. But Tobe, to try and get ahead of me because he's so competitive, has put a walk around London on his Strava this week. It's pathetic. Don't you? You should feel embarrassed, no?
It was a run. If you were there, you would have noticed.
It wasn't a run. It was not a run.
It
Right,
wasn't-
but moving on, we've got a big weekend. Big weekend this weekend. Firstly, I'm not working, which is good news. Well, I'm working, doing other stuff, but I'm not having to work, which is great news. But also, we are heading to Clapham Common. We are taking over, quite literally, Clapham Common Park Run tomorrow. There's over 100 of us heading to Clapham. I've got to get about 14 trains, 2 planes, a helicopter, and 8 buses to get there. But I'm getting there because Anen's promised me a banquet. But we are heading there because Ben and Anen are celebrating. Now, get this, people, if you're listening to this. Stop if you're running and listen to this. They have been going to be running for 1,000 days. Just think about it. 1,000 days. I
They've
can't
had the
run
odd
for more
break.
than 6. What's that, Wilco?
They're not doing it continuously for 1,000 days, but
No.
every day for
Every
1,000
day.
days.
And it's
they've
not like
been
they're
out.
just doing half a mile around the block, right?
Yeah.
They are 3 or 4 miles a day, plus races for 1,000 days. 1,000. Just think about 1,000 days. That's mental.
Yeah, we met up at the Olympic Park Half Marathon last week, and Ben was there, and I was chatting to him about it. And yeah, he said he does 5 miles a day.
Mad.
Yeah, that is mad.
Amazing, isn't it?
I've just, by the way, I'll type.
Yeah.
Someone's
so
just put a comment in
someone's asking about the big half.
about the big half. I've got a response from London Marathon Events on that. Because
So-
if you've not listened to the show, when was it? I was ranting. I got really upset with London
2
Marathon
or 3
Events.
weeks ago.
Yes.
Wasn't it?
And give them credit, right? Always give credit where credit's due. I give people a hard time in it. They came back and responded to what we said about our runner, who we won't name, but they did respond. And so, in fairness to them, where is it?
So this was somebody who had a medical condition. They couldn't run. They wanted to defer, and they weren't allowed, even though they had a doctor's certificate.
Yeah. That was it. Hang on. I've actually, I've deleted.
Just
the
put
email.
much yourselves for a minute, folks.
Yeah, well, it's because I deleted the email.
Oh, what's that?
The first part of the question that's come through is, do we know when the big half will be taking place? Will it be March, April, just before London Marathon? Which is what we think, isn't it? We think it's going to go early next year because it usually goes kind of 4 weeks before the marathon. There's no date confirmed yet, but as far as we know, it will be late March, I reckon, mid-late March.
Yeah. And it's up to you whether you want to do it. I wouldn't necessarily bother. But I put this out there. So we contacted London Marathon Events and they were kind enough to respond. We told them what happened in terms of the runner, and we disagreed with the fact that they weren't allowed to defer despite the fact of having an operation and be able to present doctor's notes and et cetera, et cetera. So what they responded, I'm going to read this in full to give them the opportunity. We understand how disappointing it is for someone to have a place in an event but not be able to take part due to injury, illness, or life circumstances beyond their control. Like many events, the Big Half operates a no deferral policy, which is communicated to everyone who signs up for the event via our terms and conditions. Any appeals are considered on a case-by-case basis. And then they go on to basically say that runner can get in touch and they will review it, which is good news, because that person lost their £40 from the it was a deferral kind of thing. So what they're saying is they're falling back to the terms and conditions. I personally think, again, thanks for them to responding to that, and they're entitled to that, and fair play to them. But my personal opinion is those terms and conditions need to change. I think all this case by case basis is nonsense, because it's the luck of the draw who you get, because it could be someone's having a bad day or someone's like leaving the office. I think they should just say, if you're able to present medical evidence that you can't run, then there should be. And all that runner was looking to do was just defer. So that's my sixpence on it. As we know, other races do that. But again, that's their thing. So all I would say to you guys is, if you're booking the Big Half, be aware that if you're unable to take part, they're likely, unless there's a case, they're case by case basis, they're likely not to be able to let you defer.
Also, we ought to point out this week that in other London Marathon events news, they've come to the rescue of the Brighton Marathon, and they're going to be taking that on. I think they've got a 3-year deal to do that, with an option for another 2 years. Obviously, grounded events who were doing that, they've run into financial problems. We've talked quite a lot on here about the issues that 40 Runs members and other people have been out of pocket due to the problems that grounded events have had over the last few years. So I think seeing a reputable company taking over the event, and we'll be able to, I would be hopeful that the Brighton Marathon will grow and continue to be a success under the stewardship of London Marathon.
Yeah. So let's. Someone's just said it's in September. Apparently, it's on their page. We've got somebody listening from New Zealand. Whereabouts in New Zealand? Let us know, because I like New Zealand. I've been there.
What time is it?
I've got no idea, but let me know. It's in September. Right. What else? There's loads of stuff.
There's one around the Olympic half from last weekend, which we were all at actually. Which says, what happened at the Olympic half? It was a run-through event, a surprise.
I heard that.
I haven't heard that. I mean,
I heard that. Somebody was saying when I was waiting for Si, because he decided to have a lay down with half a mile to go. I heard that from some people coming through, that they'd gone the wrong way. Now, I don't know. Now, the marshals and volunteers, I've got to give them a big shout out at that event. They were amazing last weekend.
They were.
So well done, run through, and everybody who organised that. It was really good. So I don't know what happened and where that happened, but there was a lot of out and backs. So I'm guessing at one of those out and backs, and up and down the hills and stuff like that, that someone just probably took a right. And you know what it's like when you follow the herd, didn't you? So you see somebody going right, you're going to follow them right, because you're not really paying attention. So I'm guessing it's something like that, but I don't know the true extent of it. But I did hear that.
We were up when I got to sort of like the velodrome, which was about the sort of like the 6 or the 7 mile mark. Having heard this now, I saw a couple of lads who you could tell were sort of like speedy. They had the vest on and they were thin and about 23, 24, and they were discussing.
That was me, Wilco. That was me.
It was definitely not you. You were late. Don't forget.
Yeah.
And
watch the video on Sunday.
They were having a discussion with a marshal, and obviously something had happened there, and they'd gone the wrong way.
Yeah, I don't know whether because the 10K runners, I don't know whether something happened and it all got a bit wonky. I say I feel from it was super busy. People were late because the trains were up the Swanee. We was late. Watch the video on Sunday. That'll explain that. But it was just one of those days, I think. So, yeah. But it was
on that though. Can I just say that I thought it was really well marshaled, and really, like, the volunteers were incredible, as you just said. But these people are giving up their time for free. And I saw, as I was coming through, the bit that was a bit traily before you go through that big puddle that was there. And there was a guy having a bit of a go at the marshal about how far out his watch was versus the mile markers. And you're like, why are you having a go at him? He's going this a mile out, and my watch was out. But it is what it is. don't have a go at the marshals, don't have a go at the volunteers. They're there for free, giving up their time to help people out, right? So let's just be kind and gracious to all these people.
Yeah. Gary just put about he saw a bloke going mental doing with a marshal. Again, we just spoke about it at the front end of the show about, you know, men's mental health and all that sort of stuff. And in general, you've got to remember, right? You go after and start attacking people just because you're frustrated at something that you're not agreeing with. That is actually going to impact that person beyond what you expect. You think you might be having a go at somebody. You might be, I don't know, just deciding to pick a fight with somebody because you think you know best, but that is ultimately going to impact that person. You don't understand what they're going through in their life. So just think about it. Like, and I'm the first person, right, to spout off and whatnot, right? That's me with some of my issues that I have, right? And you know, I can't help that sometimes, but ultimately, you try and think before you start laying into people and start having a go, because, you know, especially at an event like that where people are doing any marshal, any volunteer, they're all heroes, right? We would not be able to do these races that we like doing without them. It's as simple as that, right? So, if anything, go out and give them a hug, but just tell them you're going to give them a hug, because otherwise they're going to think, you know, before you do it. Okay, so whoever that bloke was, I hope he regrets what he's done and he writes in and apologizes and finds out who that person is. Right, moving on. So, evening all. Yeah. So, what else have we got coming in? Oh, New Zealand.
Yeah, New Zealand. From Wellington. It's 8:15.
I love Wellington. I love Wellington. Wellington was nice. Yeah, I mean, honestly, if you go anywhere, New Zealand, both islands, you know, north and south, absolutely stunning. I mean, it's, you know, it's the sort of place your kids can still run around outside without, you know, worrying about it. You know, it's a beautiful, beautiful place. It really is. So we're heading over there. Yeah, what?
Yeah, the one we've got is about training plans, actually. So I'll hold that until we get into that, because I think it's.
Yeah. Well, we could crack on with that now if you like.
Okay. All right. So, look. The reason we wanted to talk about it, and it was Wilco's idea, and it was a good idea, is because you're probably coming up to that point where at some next couple of weeks, you're probably going to have to start some form of plan. I'm guessing, look, right, we're talking about probably the majority, but I appreciate that some people just like running. Okay, right. So, but one of the things I've been really busy with the last couple of weeks is writing people's plans. But I appreciate, with the cost of living crisis and, you know, everybody taking money out of your pocket, you probably haven't got that money to go and ask somebody like me to write you a bespoke plan. So what we want to do today is try and help you out when you sit down, to try and just give you some things to think about when you are writing a plan. Now, you can get free ones online. Again, you know, the thing is with the free ones online, they don't necessarily work for you. And I find a lot of people, a lot of runners who then end up coming to me, they say, yeah, I got that plan, but it really didn't work for me, or it was too fast. I picked up one runner this year, London Marathon. He took a Ben Parks training plan. There's nothing wrong with Ben Parks training plans. They're very good. But he took a Ben Parks plan that was too intense for him, and he ended up getting injured. Now, again, just big caveat, that's not Ben Parks' fault, right? His plans are very good. I would recommend you check them out. But the point is he took one because he didn't know which one to take. And it got him injured. He ended up, you know, and I got and we put a bespoke one together and blah, 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 and then he finished London. So it's very difficult if you don't know what you're looking for. You think, yeah, actually, I probably could do a 3:45, but, you know, because I went sub 4, but that might be too much. You might end up on a place. So that's why today we want to try, if we can. And I think the easiest way to sort of break it down and make it easy is to talk about the sort of blocks within the plan. Now, because then that sort of applies to a 12-week half marathon plan or a 16-week a marathon plan. And now they're not set those amounts, but they're roughly what tends to work for most people. Okay, so we're using them as sort of benchmarks. And I did a video on, was it last week or was it coming out this week? I've got no idea where we are, but I did a video. I think it's out actually, where I'm talking about my plan that I'm doing for myself for London and Manchester. And I spoke about in that video these blocks in which we're gonna go through today. So what I want you to do is, I know if you're out running, you're listening to this podcast, but effectively when you get home, get a pad right? And effectively, we're gonna be doing 4 or 5, 4 blocks, and then you've got a taper. So, what do you want to do? Should we start into it now, or what do you want to do? Do you want to do some more
I think
questions?
what we wanted to say is that I'll just talk about what I've done before, because I did. Dublin was my third marathon, and I decided to look at plans and then sort of like configure my own plans around it. So I sort of like fit it into my schedule, because I know I'm going to be doing particular things on particular days. I tend to work a lot of weekends, so I don't have, sometimes I'll do my long run in the week and things like that. So I basically adapted a plan for what suited me. But I think I would not have done that for if I was doing my first marathon. I wouldn't have done that. I'd be much more. I wouldn't fly solo so much. I'd be looking at much more a structured thing off a website or from a running coach. Yeah. So I don't think we're particularly talking about talking to beginner marathon runners, people going out and doing their first one. Would that be fair?
No, I think we've got everybody here.
No, but would you recommend somebody doing their first marathon to draw up their own plan?
No, I would if I was doing my first marathon, I would, and I did this when I did my first marathon. I spoke to my brother-in-law, who had completed a marathon. I said to him, "What did you do? How did you go about it? What was you running?" He suggested how he did it. He then sent me to what was it? I can't remember whether it was in whatever it was. It was a website of some sort. And he said, "Look, this is what I got." I think he might have even emailed it to me. And then I looked at my week, and then I sort of played about a bit, and then I referred back to him and said, So if you're doing your first one, ask somebody, speak to somebody on the 40 Runs Facebook community, speak to somebody at your local club if you're a club runner, or maybe you're one of our amazing satellite runners and you've got a place. Speak to somebody there and say, how do I go about this? Can you just find someone who you respect and you appreciate, and ask them for advice to start with. If you're not in a fortunate position to do that, then firstly, join the 40 Runs running community on Facebook. But if you don't have Facebook, find a plan online through like the London Marathon website, something like that, because they're obviously reputable and they're done. But you've got to be very careful on some of these plans, because they're drawn up by people who ain't like, I'm not going to name the YouTube channel, but there's a YouTube channel that gives out training plans, and I'm not sure they're written by coaches. So you've got to be very careful what you are getting. So make sure. So like London Marathon website is a good source, because that's been written by someone who's qualified to do it. Yeah, sorry, Admin.
No, don't. Sorry, I think it's really overwhelming though. So as I think I've said on here before, I started running because I did that typical thing, which is I'm going to do London once in my life. Got a place for a charity, and it was a bucket list thing. And you go out there, and this is just before I'd found the 40 group, and you go, and I actually went onto a London Marathon website, and this is of no disrespect or not me having a dig at all, because they are amazing, and I think it's brilliant that they do give plans out right for free, and it enables runners to get access to that, which is brilliant. But you look at them, and if you're a complete beginner like I was, it's really overwhelming going from like nothing, and the first few weeks build you up quite easily, and then you're like, oh my God, I need to go and run for 2 hours, 3 hours. How am I going to do this? And it's not just the long runs, it's all the stuff in between. And that's why I think what we're going to talk about is really important, because you've got to think about what you can actually do. There's no point in, like I always say, there's no point in me looking at what Chris and Toby are doing, right? Because I'm not the same runner. So
he does a lot of walking.
He does a lot of walking and a lot of eating, which I don't do either. But
it works.
Do you know what? We should just let Toby do this. Toby, talk everyone through what your marathon.
Yeah, talk us through your plan, Tobe, for said event in next year that we're not allowed to mention. Talk about what your plan is, right?
Let's talk about Manchester. What does your plan look like?
Plan for Manchester. I haven't really looked at that yet. It's a bit early in advance for me, but I mean, we'll get there. We'll do a bit of running. We'll mix some stuff into it. But I think it's quite important what Wilco and Admin were saying, is that you look at a plan, and also you wonder how you can fit it in. and you sort of go, well, the long run, I can't do that. And I work Saturday or I do. But I mean, the first thing that a coach will do when they come to you is ask what your week's like.
Yeah.
And they will sort of profile where you're at and when you have time to fit these runs in, how many runs you can fit in a week. Because otherwise, a lot of people go and they go, well, I've got to follow this word for word, which isn't true. And you can move stuff around.
Pitfalls.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a pitfall. And that's the thing. But Toby, you still haven't answered the question. How are you going to train for, what was it you said? Manchester. How are you going to train for Manchester? Because apparently Mark said Figo doesn't even have to train for marathons, as we know, because he doesn't train and runs it's 3:46 because the course was short. But yeah, marathon type.
Stop it.
What is it?
Well, I haven't quite looked yet. I mean, I might look next year.
What, 7 days of rest?
Yeah, well, I might go up to, I don't know, 15 miles a week. Might taper,
What, walking?
Taper about, 12 weeks out?
Okay, 12 weeks out. Well, you heard it all here first, people. So, right, look. Okay. So you've got, what you need to do is you need to look in terms of how your week works, right? How does that week, is it a week that changes because of work commitments? Is it a week that is pretty steady in terms of how it looks? What days? First thing I ask somebody is what days their rest days, because they're really important. Then I'll say what days your long run on, right? So think about your week on a Monday to Sunday. Now you can start the week wherever you want, but look at it over a 7-day period. Put in your rest days, put in which day suits you for a long run, because that's the most important run that we need you to get, right? Also in there, you need to think, because we've said it for the last couple of weeks, about your cross training. We need you to do some strength and conditioning work, people. Even if it's literally going on YouTube and finding our HIIT session, cross training session thing, YouTube video that's free for everybody, and just doing that in front of your TV, right? But you need to be able to do something, okay? When can you get a bit of that done? And then you want to say to yourself, right, so I've got my long run. I need a bit of sort of time off feet, and also need to do probably a bit of speed work. And then if you've got a little bit more time about that, you can then think to yourself, actually, probably a bit of work at marathon pace and all that sort of stuff. If you're, as you say, Wilco, that sort of next level up, I need to be thinking about that. So I've said about it before on the channel, you've got that low, medium, high efforts in there. And then you've got your long run. Now, your long run, if you're only about to get out and run 3 times a week, your long run will be one of those efforts, because your long run will be done at different effort levels. It could be done at an easy pace, and you just time on feet. Or you could that week, it could be a medium effort because you're sprinkling in goal pace, right? So, or you could go out and chuck 16 miles at your ultimate gut marathon pace. So that would be a high effort, right? So, but ultimately, we're looking for you, when you're writing that plan for yourself, to be looking for those key components: rest days, cross training, and then your high, medium, low, and then a long run, or make that long run part of that week. They're the sort of components I want you to think about. Then in the first 4-week block, what I really want you to think about is, are you eating okay? Are you getting plenty of sleep? Are you taking on a lot of hot fluids? I'm saying a lot of hydration, random. But really, ultimately, within those first 4 weeks, once you start, you're looking to find that consistency. We've said about it 6 billion times on here. We should somehow try and get that onto a t-shirt. Be consistent, right? But you need to start finding those patterns and that frequency and everything else early doors in that plan, right? And that's what you need to write down and that's why it's key to work out your days. Now, if you're on a shift pattern, or again, you know, work out roughly how your shift pattern works, so you can find that consistency early in the plan, those first 4 weeks. But the intensity should be low, right? We're not looking for you to break down like walls. You know, we're not looking for you to go out and run 22 miles.
Yeah.
We're just looking for you to have a nice, low, intense 4 weeks. You're in marathon training mode. You've worked out your frequencies. You worked out how best you can be as consistent as you can be within those first, because that is the building block for what would then be sort of stage 2, I would say, Does that make sense, Wilco?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You have to sort of like it is a long slog. You have to feel your way in, don't you?
Yeah.
Yeah. Basically, you have to find your way. We spoke about it before. It's like going to a honky tonk. They're playing a really good song, and it's a two-step, and you find that rhythm while you're two-stepping on the dance floor. It's the same thing, yeah. It's all about finding that rhythm. See, I got it in there, admin. It's all about finding that rhythm, yeah, in your plan. Early doors. The earlier you do it, the better it's going to be. Because I tell you what, if you're in there crashing, I'm going to do an interval session in. I'm then going to go and smash that out there. Oh, hang on, machines are hurting. Like you're all over the place, and also your brain is going to get totally fried. Okay.
And
Yeah,
you're
Robert,
also
it's a
going to
good
get.
point.
You're
Hang
also
on,
going to be
Wilco,
able.
sorry,
Sorry,
it's
mate.
a good point. What Al mentioned, it's a 14-day period. Funnily enough, if you're on a shift plan, I just literally got off the phone with somebody who I was doing a training plan for, and they do shift patterns, and we spoke about 2-week blocks. Yeah, so if you're on a shift pattern, like I just said, 14-day period, because what you can do is you can pull stuff in and out of that 2 period of what works for you when you're not working. And that's why what Alan says is absolutely right. And that's why, so I just got off with some writing, starting to put a plan together, somebody who's on shift patterns. 14 days does tend to work because you can, and that's one of the reasons why, some of the plans we do, they're 2-week blocks because you can move stuff about.
Yeah.
So again, think about it. Like it's very dependent on you as how your life is. But in those first 4 weeks, I want you to think about that. And then effectively you've done that building work. You're then going to take a bit of a step back and go, right, how am I doing? So factor that into your training plan. How a sort of step back week, not a down week, a step back week. Now that again can be not dropping a run, but instead of doing a 40-minute easy run, maybe you do 30 minutes, that sort of thing. And instead of doing 13 miles, maybe you go back to 10 and you're going to run that easy. Sorry, Wilco, I did cut you off. What was you trying to say?
No, that's okay. I was also going, this is all great advice and everything. I was going to say that also in the first 4 weeks, you will get into habits that are not necessarily related to the actual running. So you will get into this, you might get into like getting up an hour earlier before you go to work or something, or eating your breakfast at a certain time and things like that. There'll be other things in your life that you'll be able to factor into your running day and your running plan. And that's the time to build the foundation for that sort of stuff as well.
Yeah, one thing I did miss off because I was reading the comments, and thanks very much. Keep them coming in. Was one of the other things you need to add in when you're sitting down and try and drop is you need to put in on that plan the date of your race, right? You then need to put in your highest mileage run or time that you're going to do. So whether that's 3.5 hours, 20 miles, 22 miles, whatever it is, right? I don't know you as a runner. But you should also do that. When we was talking about that first thing about writing in your rest days and all that sort of stuff, I really want you to put that goal at the end and then sort of work back from there. And that's where this is now leading to in terms of these blocks. But yeah, I forgot to. You need to put that in, and I blame everybody for putting all the stuff in the comments.
I was just going to say as well. You're right. Like finding that first 4 weeks, it's finding consistency, isn't it? And what that means for you and what that looks like, and learning about food, what you're going to eat before a run, what doesn't work for you before a run, and all those bits. And I think the other thing is, if you think about those first 4 weeks and break it down, because to my point, otherwise it feels, you look at 16 weeks and go, oh my God, I've got 13 weeks before I do a 22-mile run or a 20-mile run. That is like, if you're, no matter how experienced you are, and I think we've all run more than one marathon, all of us sat around here, I don't think that 20-mile run ever gets any easier, right? It is hard work. Marathon training it is hard. The impact on your body, physically, mentally, is hard. And so instead of going, I've got 16 weeks to do this, just going, okay, right, first block's 4 weeks. Let me think about the first week, or 2 weeks if that's you're in a shift pattern and you're doing it on 2-week block. But it just feels more digestible to go, okay, right, these are the days I'm going to go out and run. That's it. And then look at the next bit.
Yeah, mate, you're right. I mean, we have got about 6 million questions. We'll come on to them in the second after we do the second block, if that's all right, guys.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah, so we'll talk weeks 5 to 8. Then I mean, obviously, we're talking about. We're just using an example of a 16-week marathon.
Yeah, no, yes, it applies. I've deliberately avoided putting weeks on this.
Yeah,
deliberately, all right, because everybody's blocks on how they work. Because this applies also to a 20-week plan. This applies to a 10. And even on a 6-week plan, 6 to 8 week plan, which again, England, we work in they teach us working mesocycles and all this sort of stuff, right? So it's a period of time in which, we can make changes and we can actually make the gain. So we're trying to do that sort of stuff. So I'm reluctant to put weeks on it because I don't want to box it up.
Okay.
But what I do want to say is to put these sort of blocks into place. So again, when you're sitting there writing your plan, I want you to think about this. So, or you can think about it as phases, right? So phase 1. Yeah, tick the box. I've done that. I've had my step back week. The second part, right, which I wouldn't say is necessarily what's the best? We're starting to turn the engines on. Okay, this is where I believe marathon training, if you're into marathon training, sort of comes alive, because the first 4 weeks are sort of you're sort of laying down the foundations. It's it's a bit of a sight. Do you know what I mean? You just put the saddle on the horse, and now you're about to get on. Do you know what I mean? It's that sort of thing before you go out the gates. You then go into that second phase. You then start looking at those high efforts and making them high efforts. Yeah, you start stepping on it and saying and questioning yourself in terms of, am I really going for this? You start thinking about, I need to be pushing on here. This says to me, I've got to run an interval. You need to run an interval. You don't need to do a lactate threshold run when it says interval. You need to find that operating ceiling, that top of that, and try and push through it. Because this phase and the next phase are where we're sort of putting that speed down and we're building everything in. So you do need to start licking at it. You do then need to be putting down times in your training and more effort based. On the separate stuff, your mileage will probably increase. Again, this applies to catch the 5K all the way through to marathons, ultra marathons, but your weekly mileage will start increasing. Bear that in mind, because your body's now going to start to feel the effects of it. It's not uncommon, and Wilco, we spoke about this, 6 months ago, that there's a period in that marathon training plan, as an example, that you go, there's no way I can do this. I'm exhausted. I can't run past 10 miles. I'm spent, because you're in that period of time where your body's taking a real pasting and you're trying to adjust. But you will adjust, okay? Because your long runs will start picking up, right? So just an example with my plan, I will, after about the first couple of weeks, I then go into my 16, 18, 20 mile rotation. That's not what I'm telling you to do, but I will start putting mileage down into the long runs. Yeah. Because I want to start working that extra distance through my legs, building that stamina and, blah, blah, blah. And it'll be the same for you. In that second phase, I want you to start thinking about increasing your mileage, but doing it in a way that you're not going to break yourself. So, stepping up. So whether you start on week 1 at, I don't know, 6 miles, right? By sort of whenever this is, maybe you're probably 13 miles now. We then jump up maybe to 14 miles, or go to 15. But just small gains now. We need to start climbing up that mountain a bit quicker in terms of getting up there in terms of distance, yeah? But we're still keeping the sort of pace, a little bit reined back. We're not letting the horse off just yet, because that will come later. What we're trying to do is just build that stamina into the week, because you're starting to push hard on some of that other bit, that speed work. So you've got to give a little bit somewhere. Don't forget your easy stuff. Yeah. Don't forget in your week where you've prepared, however you're doing, that you are doing plenty of easy work. It's got to be easy. And I mean like easy, not like, because we've all got a natural pace that we're quite comfortable running at or walking at. We've all got that. It's you just didn't have a watch, you just go out and run at a certain pace. But you need to intentionally run slow so your body gets time on its feet. It's in that aerobic state, so it is, it is building and it's working nicely, but it's not really impacting you. It's not fatiguing you. It's not really shredding your muscles like a high effort would. So you need to be doing that, but you need to make sure you're doing that easy as well. So again, factor that into that second block, that the stuff is, but the main focus for me in a second block for you is to start turning the engines on and turning them up a bit and getting into it, I would say.
Yeah.
So
sorry.
What are we looking at for phase 3 then, after we've sort of like cranked it
well,
up?
Let's get into some of the questions, I think, Wilco. We've done 40
Okay.
minutes. I know we're running a bit late, but let's get a couple of questions
Right.
batted out.
I think this one we've answered, which is, would you incorporate any weight training into the plan? So we've spoken about
We've done that, yeah.
training, but
Yeah, I think we've spoken about it before,
yeah. This is a good one. Do you change the intensity and rest based on the runner's age? Online, the plans don't seem to.
Yeah, you've got to factor that in, 100%. Yeah,
Yeah.
100%, because you got to think about recovery. Recovery is so important, but fitness levels as well differ depending on age. It has to be taken into account as you get older. That's not to say that it's slower, but you would need to adjust accordingly. Yeah, 100%. Especially recovery. I would probably say to do more cross training, low intensity cross training, than I would say to somebody who's 10 years younger. I would say, you could probably afford to do more strength work to count some of that, but get yourself, I don't know, in the pool if you're a little bit older, because that will help you in terms of recovery, but also it will really build that aerobic engine, but the impact's lower on your body. Do you see what I mean? So yes, you do have to think about that. But that's not to say, because there's 60-year-old geezers who are fitter than me, and like, look at Toby, he's 10 years younger, and look how much faster he runs and walks because he's 10 years younger than me. If we was the same age, Toby, I would whoop you, boy. Absolutely.
I don't know when you're going to get the bike out and do the extra bit of cross training you was talking
I'm not doing
about.
biking. I refuse to do any biking.
You
Right,
should
carry
do
on,
a bit
Abby.
more.
It's a good point now on Toby's effort. If Wilco's at 60%, Toby, what's your average effort?
Well, I would say the average effort is about 95. It's just not as often.
No.
I'm sorry.
Sorry, no.
I'm sorry. There's absolutely no way you do anything at 90. You don't even eat at 95% effort level, because
you're really good at that.
98.
You're good at it, but you don't apply yourself when eating, do you?
I mean, you don't want to put too much effort in. You
the
wear
other
yourself
day.
out too quick.
It wasn't 100% effort. You left some of those that Si still owes us for. So if you're listening, you can just wire us the £100 that you owe us for those sides. But you didn't do a 100% job on those sides, did you, the other day?
I had quite a few of them.
No, we
And
didn't.
you had a
We didn't need
jalapeno
the
as well,
12
which
weeks.
is
We didn't
pretty
need the
good,
12 weeks.
pretty
Right,
impressive.
Admin, come on, carry on.
Right. Robert Hallam, remember 80-20%, 80-20, sorry, and low heart rate, which I think could be it's quite hard. So our ladies groups, when we say to them, run it easy, they're like, what does easy mean? So that's a good question, Chris. When you're saying about plans and putting easy runs into them, what does easy actually mean for people that have never done a training block before?
Conversational. Like, do it and then feel like you ain't done nothing. Like, stop and yeah, let's quantify it. If I run a 22-minute park run, I will feel like I run a 22-minute park run. If I run 27-minute park run, or 30, I'll stop and I ain't done nothing. And it's, yes, I've still run, but I could have carried on doing that pace for another 3 hours. Yeah. It's that sort of knowing you can stop and walk and then carry on, and like you ain't done nothing. It's that ability to have complete control over that pace. So you're really not impacting yourself. You're not out of breath. You're not struggling. Your cadence, you're not running too fast. It's nice and easy, and that's what you want. Should you factor nutrition when coming up with a plan? Yeah, I said it, Dermot, at the thing. I said, make sure you're eating well, balanced diet. I mean, I'm not a nutritionist. Spigo's definitely not a nutritionist, but it's common sense. I think if you're looking at a plan, you've got to look at what you're eating. Look at what Wilco's doing. You've got to balance it out and make sure you are looking after yourself in terms of what you're consuming, because again, it helps with recovery, especially like you know, your proteins and all this sort of stuff. You know, you've got to make sure you are taking on a nice balanced diet when you're entering any form of change to your lifestyle.
So like your sleep and your other habits about getting up in the morning, things like that. The first 4 weeks is the time to nail all that.
100%.
Just got 2 more questions and then we'll go back to blocks 3. But somebody said they're in their 50s. Most of my cross training is Pilates. Is that okay? Yes. Monica, the osteo, would be in heaven right now. She suggests we all do Pilates.
I've got to give her a shout out. She's been an osteo for 11 years. She's the best osteo in this business. I'm not just saying that, right? She's genuine, because somebody said to me yesterday who went there. She said she's like just a magician. She was like, boom, 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 there's the point. Come out of there like a new woman. So if you're in Hertfordshire, she has no idea I'm saying this. So it's not paid like, you know, other podcasts. I'm genuine. Get yourself along to what is it? What's our business?
MSB Osteo.
I would travel if I lived in Newcastle. I would travel down 16 hours or whatever it takes on the train for me to get to the Great North Run to see Monica. She's my hero. Okay, so make sure you said it. Right, carry on.
And then JBS, friend of the show. But question: my cross training tends to be in my garage, burpees, kettlebells, and yoga. Is that suitable cross training given 90% of my runs are at 127 heartbeats per minute?
Yeah, I think you know, he's doing a good balance. You know, burpees, kettlebells, yoga. It's a good balance, JBS. It's fine. I think I wouldn't overcomplicate it to a degree. It's like, am I doing something that's strengthening my upper body? Yeah. Is that, you know, strengthening my core? Yeah. Am I doing something that's ultimately strengthening my lower body, glutes, you know, quads, calves, all that sort of stuff? I mean, Al's the best person to talk about this because I'm, again, not a qualified PT. But am I doing something that's working and helping that? Yeah. And I'm keeping it dead simple here for a reason, right? And then am I doing something that is working my muscles, but in a totally different way to my running, and it's having low impact because I'm smashing the life out of them because I'm running for 3 hours on a Sunday? Yeah, I am. Because I'm doing swimming, or what did you say? I'm doing yoga, right? That's the way I would look at it in pure layman terms and really basic stuff. So how you make that up is entirely up to you. It's just the fact that I'm a believer of, as an everyday runner, as if I'm doing something, it's better than doing nothing. That makes sense? It's that basic.
I think also as well that it's good that if you find something that you just like doing and that's going to do you good, because you've got to be able to. It can't be a chore, because if it's a chore, you won't want to do it, and ultimately you won't do it. If it's something that you get out of thing and it becomes a release, you think, oh, you know, I'm out running 5 days a week. I could do with something else. I could do with switching off. Then going out and smashing out 30 lengths at a pool, you know, it will be ideal if if you can get out of it and you enjoy doing something different. That's what I'd say. Do what. Yeah. When it comes to cross training, do what you enjoy.
Yeah. Don't go biking. Don't go biking.
Right, hold on, we're at 48 minutes.
All right, 48 minutes. Let's crash through middle block.
Yes.
So middle block, right? So this is probably one of the most important points in this sort of plan that you're putting together for yourself. Yeah. This is where everything is sort of coming in. You should start building that higher effort into that sort of longer run. So start, if you're a little bit more advanced, putting those goal pace runs into those longer runs. You should be carrying on your speed work. Your mileage is going up. It's like everything is coming at you left, right, and center, making sure you are doing those, 45-minute tempo runs. Yeah, as an example here, right? So something in the week, just taking it back a step, that's pushing you a little bit harder than that easy stuff, but it's not killing you like your sort of speed stuff, right? That's you're almost got all the different parts coming at you. This section's so important. If you can nail this part of the plan, this will ultimately give you what you want at the end of the plan, because you've done the legwork at the start, you've done the basics, you've got your consistency, boom. You then turned up the engine. Thanks very much. This is starting to hurt. Don't like it very much, but it's all right. I can manage it. This section is likely to kill you. But if you can suck it up and do everything you're meant to do here and put stuff into your plan that will test you deliberately, then ultimately that will give you your end result. Because after that, and I've sort of skipped through that deliberately because of the time, because the last phase is effectively the conditioning element. We'll come on to that in a second. But this part here is probably, when you look at your plan, I want you to be thinking, this is the bit where it's going to count. Yeah, this is the part where whatever I do here is going to make a difference. So, give an example, as we like to do. So, when I was marathon training, whenever it was, for the London Marathon, I was sweet as a nut. I can't remember which year it was, but I was sweet as a nut. Phase 1, phase 2, beautiful. I mean, beautiful. Phase 3, started bleeding out my nose, couple of pints a day, found a lump up there, all that sort of stuff. Had to have it removed, all that, surgery, bomb, out of action, done. So that section was gone. Then came back, because I had some good news that it wasn't, came back. Didn't tell the doctor I was doing the London Marathon, caveat. But then I did the sort of last phase, which we'll come on to. But ultimately, I didn't have the engine. I didn't have that third phase to propel me to the finish. So I had to step back, because I was smart, because I've been on this rodeo before. I knew that I didn't have that third phase to get me into that, that 20 mile to 26 mile stage where this comes in. Yeah, I didn't have that. So I had to step out. I had to stop at 20 miles and walk, because basically I knew I didn't have it. And that's a clear example of missing that section. So that's why that section is so important when you're writing your plan. You've got to think to yourself, this is where I'm going to do the really hard work, but it is where it will give you the result that you want. Does that make sense, guys?
Yes, it does. What I'd like to say about this particular thing is bring in the subject of events. I've in the 3 marathon plans that I've found sort of, we talked about phases and that, but in my case, it'll be a 16-week plan. Around week 8 or 9, mentally I'm struggling and it's getting a bit on top of me and the thing. And I often find that having an event to look forward to at that sort of point gives me a bit of a break, gives me something else to concentrate on, and really helps.
Yeah. I just did a plan for Ben in Hartford, and who's my hero, and mainly because he gets broken every week by a speedgoat. But we was talking about it, and we came up with a plan that involved effectively 2 races, which would test him through his plan. That would be his focal points through these phases, in which I didn't go through the phases with what we're doing tonight. But when I'm, coming up with a plan, this is what I'm thinking overall. So we put in a cheeky 10K in there that he can go and have a go at it, find out where his ultimate speed is. Yeah, that's a good pointer in terms of where his fitness is, because by doing a 10Ks, effectively, it's more than a threshold run. You can really go after it, but it will ultimately show you where you're at. If you try and hang on to a pace, you'll know how you feel. More importantly, how you recover. We also put in there a half marathon. And I do the same. We was discussing this. I think I put in the group about a half marathon that we needed, because I wanted a half marathon in March. And I would say we've done that for Ben, because we're then looking, how's he feeling at goal pace in a race environment? Can he push out a time over the half marathon distance? If he can, we know we're in good shape. But we then still got time within a marathon plan to catch some of whatever we're missing. So if he's got the speed, but he could only hold it to 10, or he crushed through it and he was feeling like he ain't done nothing at the end of it, then we can throw a little bit more at him. Yeah. And that's, as you say, Wilco, it also breaks up the monotony of whatever you're doing, whether it's a couch to 5K or whatever. By putting something in there, it gives you a target, but a short-term target. Yeah. And within that plan, it can again break it down like we've done with these phases. Guys, I'll just give you a heads up. We've got like 6 and a bit minutes.
Can I just say one thing quickly on that racing? They're really important as well to, I think, do a race to not only test where you're at, but also the preparation of getting up, getting ready, going to a race, bag drop, how you feel. Because I think I've said it before, and everyone that knows me, I hate races. They give me anxiety. I hate all of that, the whole build up to it. I'll get there and I'll go and do them and it's fine. But I think it's really important to get used to that and get you being in that environment. Because if you're doing your training on your own, or even if you're going to a local club, all right, you might run with 5, 10, 20 people, but suddenly on the start line with hundreds of people or 1,000 people, it feels very different. So doing that, I think, just starts to put you in that mindset of, okay, right, this is how I feel and this is where we're going.
So then we've got the final block then.
Yeah, sorry, I was just having some Lucozade.
That's right, mate. Well, it's a high, you know, you need to keep your energy levels up. You know, it's a long old slog.
Firstly, if Lucozade want to sponsor this podcast, how they get in touch, Wilco?
They want to get on the website 40runs.com/longrun and then just drop a little note in the box and say we'd love to come sponsor your podcast.
But we're open to all sports drinks coming and
anybody. We'll take anybody. You know, we're not fussed.
And I've got to give a shout out to Mrs. Ford for buying this for me every week to keep me filled up.
Nick playing a blinder again.
Absolute legend. My wife is puts up with me. Right, so final block. Okay, so look, this kind of we've got taper as well. So
yeah.
But it's kind of a little bit, taper's a little bit more. We probably need to do a little bit more on that. All I would say to you is in that final block. So again, when you're sitting down and you're working out what the final part of this jigsaw looks like, do remember you've got some form of taper in there. Hayden spoke about it last week, how important it is to get it right, okay? Because it's recovery, you're getting yourself mentally reset, all that sort of stuff. But your last part of the puzzle is the conditioning element. It's that sort of dialing down the speed a bit. You know, you're focusing in on maybe, let's say it's a marathon training plan or half, you know, you're focusing in a little bit more on that sort of longer run that you're going to do. 20 miles or 14 miles, whatever it is, you know, or that 3.5 hours that you're going to do on your feet. Whatever it is, you're sort of narrowing in on that as a endpoint. Yeah. So you're probably going to dial back the speed a little bit because you don't want to be wrecking yourself ready to, you want to be able to do these long runs, do this long period of time on your feet, but do them well. So you don't want to be in a totally wrecked state. Yes, we like you to run tired because that helps build that fitness. Yeah. But ultimately you can afford to dial back some of that speed. So maybe put, instead of like, I don't know, in the session in the week, it's intervals. Maybe you'd be better off doing another tempo run. You know, it's a little bit less of a body wrecker. You know, you can go out, you know, some of these, you know, Olympians, they go out and do double threshold running, right? Like someone was talking about Ben Felton on Fenton on here. You know, he does a lot of double threshold runs and stuff like that. And ultimately that builds his pace. So, you know, I'm not saying do that, by the way, but I'm just saying dial maybe some of that speed back, put some of that more medium work in there, because your focus is ultimately going to be trying to accomplish that longer distance, that bigger stuff. And you do need now to be thinking about conditioning. You do need to be thinking, right, I'm starting to move towards race day. I've blown it out in that third period, probably wrecked myself a bit because I went full guns blazing. I now just need to make sure I get through this next phase unscathed, come out of it not broken. So then you can start your taper if you're going to be doing a taper and you get to the start line in the best possible shape. So it's sort of, you're now on that wave that you're riding out the wave. You know what I mean? As you're coming through, if you was on a horse and you was in that gallop, you would then be probably coming down to a nice trot, you know, but a real nice speed one that was just gliding in back to the corral. It's that sort of thing. And you're just bringing everything down a little bit because you know you still got to push out probably quite a hefty long run. Now that can be 5K, that can be 22 miles, whatever it is, doesn't matter. But you just need a little bit, you know. What you do here won't necessarily impact the race, but if you absolutely cock this bit up, you could end up with a problem on the race day. That's probably the best way to look at it. Yeah. If you carry on going mental and running well beyond yourself, then the chances are you're going to wreck yourself a race day. And this is where it comes now to that point of overtraining. We've spoken about it before, where you're literally just smashing against a brick wall and you're not really doing anything because most of your fitness has already been gained. This period is just about consolidation and conditioning. Make sense, guys?
Yeah, getting there on the day. This is the time to be thinking about, I just want to get on that start line and give it a good go.
Yeah, basically. And that pretty much, I would say, because of the time, wraps it up. I would say if you take not all of it, right? Again, I'm not some genius guy here, right? But if you can take bits of this and what we've all spoken about tonight, when you're sitting down trying to save a few pennies to do yourself a plan, grab a bit online, grab some of Ben Park's plans, one of our plans, whatever you want to do, get off Virgin. I'm not on Virgin Marathon anymore, but you know what I mean? Get bits and bobs and chuck them all in. Then take some of this on board, and I hope it does help. And it gives you something. Now I've asked. Someone's put a question in about 18 times, so I'm going to answer this because it keeps coming up, and then we'll wrap the show up. And we've got to give a shout out to the guys tomorrow. Question from Triple X, which is an interesting name. Let me know in the comments what your real name is. That'd be super awesome. Who do you think out of the running vloggers, Ben Felton, Ben Parks, Andy Rayner, which is the Forest Team runner, Matt Rees, who's the Welsh runner, or Speaker, or any other 40 member raced against each other in a marathon, what order would they finish? Firstly, and don't take this the wrong way, but I don't really care because for me, I don't worry about times. I couldn't give a monkey's what people run. They are all of those people on there, super nice people. And you're referring really to UK runners, I would say, with Belfort. There's no US like Capuzzi or any of those guys on there. Ben Felton is killing it in his training, but so's Matt Rees. Andy Forrester-Dean is exceptionally fast. So I don't know what the order would be, but I tell you what, I'm in something where they have been discussing doing a sort of sports day of all those people, not all those people, because some of those I'm guessing won't want to come to that. But we'll do some form of sports day. So one of the other channels that you didn't mention, who I've got to give a shout out, which is Ben from This Messy Happy. He's coming back to the UK and threatened to organise like a sports day for some of the YouTubers, which would be quite cool. So I don't know if I'm meant to say that, by the way, Ben, so don't shoot me. But that would be kind of cool. But yeah, whatever. I don't really care. I got no interest in times. Maybe I'm just different to people. I don't care. They're just nice people. They make good running videos. Go and check it out. They're all good. They're all good guys.
Good luck to Ben, who's doing Valencia on Sunday.
Is it this Sunday?
It's Saturday, Sunday, isn't it?
Matt Rees is also doing it as well.
Right.
Yeah, Matt's also, and I think Ben Parks is out there as well. So there you go. That will probably give you your answer.
Yeah.
Just watch Valencia on YouTube or something. And then
go and get on
get the results, and then we'll know.
Yeah, you let us know next week.
Okay, then. Well, I hope that we've added some value and given you a few things to think about over the weekend. Thanks, everybody, for your company this week. Oh, before we go, I want to say that in 2 weeks' time, we will be having Sabrina will be in the chair, and we will be having another episode where we're talking about running issues that are more centered on women. Gemma and Mel coming?
Gemma, Mel, I've got a special guest, which we'll tell you all about on the Facebook group, and we'll let you know next week. But it's really important, men and women, if you've got questions, topics, stuff you want us to talk about, please send them in via the contact page or post them on the Facebook group and just tag me and I'll pick them up. But it's a lady special. It's us talking about those issues, but it is really important that men ask the questions as well. If there's stuff that's on their mind, stuff they want to know that help them be part of a community or kind of support to female peers, then yeah, please do get in touch. Can't wait.
Okay, so that is on the 16th. So that is we're now live on Friday, December the 2nd. So that will be in 2 weeks' time. Chris has his hand up, so I'll ask him what he wants.
Got to give a shout out to JBS for the super chat. Love you, brother.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks, John. Thanks for that. Good luck to everybody who's going to Clapham this weekend, particularly. Thanks ever so much for your company this week. Big shout out to Skechers for their support of the pod and to your listeners. Us, we love your questions and your attention. Thanks ever so much for joining us. We are on Facebook and YouTube every Friday at 7:00. And if you can't catch us, then you'll find us on your podcast provider of choice, whether that's Amazon, Apple, or Spotify. Please write a review and tell people how wonderful we are. And, we can get a few more on the gate because we've been number 2 this week and we'd love to be number 1 running podcast for Christmas. So if you could arrange that would be lovely. Don't forget, if you've got a question, go to 40runs.com/alongrun and drop your notes in there and we will pick them up. So thank you very much for your attention. Have a wonderful week. Stay safe.
Yeah.
And we'll see you next Friday.